Good afternoon, all. I'm Meghna Singh M, Chairperson IEEE Student Branch and IEEE PS Reva University. I'm the host for today's session. Reva University IEEE PS Student Branch Chapter, in association with IEEE PS Bangalore Chapter, presents a 5-day course on Smart Grid Technology. The session for today is on Smart Grid Architecture and Technology and Overview. The speaker for today's session is Dr. Santosh Kumar Hampanavar. Dr. Santosh Kumar Hampanavar is presently serving as professor in School of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Reva University, Bangalore. He obtained doctorate degree from National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, NITK, an institute of national repute, and was a recipient of MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Department, Government of India Fellowship for his PhD studies. He has involved in teaching and research since last 18 years and has published more than 30 research papers as first author, which includes 12 articles in peer reviewed index journals and around 20 papers in flagship IEEE, Springer, Elsevier conferences. He was elevated to senior member IEEE in August 2015 and has bagged three Best Paper Awards in IEEE conferences. He has acted as session chair in many IEEE flagship conferences and presently serving as editor for LNEE Springer Nature. He was module coordinator and delivered specialized lecture on V2G in a training program on electric vehicles organized by MNIT Jaipur and IIT Guwahati sponsored by MITI New Delhi. His areas of research interest include power system communication, smart grid, vehicle to grid, deregulated power system, energy market, cyber physical systems for power distribution networks, DSP for power system applications, stochastic modeling of intermittent renewable energy resources. He has completed two research funded projects to tune 3 million and 5 million INR. He is a member of External Appraisal Committee, Ministry of Environmental Forests and Climate Change, Government of India. We welcome you, sir. Now, handing over to Santosh Kumar, sir, for the session.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, Meghna, can you start presenting like slides? You can present it. It's a problem. Like something is going wrong. You start presenting the slides. I'll just start.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Is it in the process, Meghna? No, Yeah, good afternoon all. I'm Dr. Santosh Kumar Ampannawar, presently serving as professor in the School of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Reva University, Bengaluru. Today I would like to present a concept of smart grid, and the title for presentation what I have chosen is Smart Grid Architecture and Technology, an overview. Actually, this particular topic why I chose is because we are planning to have 5 sessions down the line. We'll be going through the concepts of power electronics and other details, and we'll be considering the issues related to demand response and other parameters of interest when it comes to smart grid. In this presentation, I'll be dealing with the architecture and technology, like how actually the smart grid is. In a very brief, I'll be just discussing the things, and we will see how things will progress as the presentation continues in terms of the technologies being discussed. Next. So the presentation, the contents for the presentation, if you look at, so some important things will be discussed, like I'll be speaking on the signal processing, and based on that, after that we'll be going through the concept of wide area monitoring system, then a cyber physical system entity. These are the contents which I thought of, followed by reference. Then already the concept of smart grid, we know why this smart grid came into picture. Like with the restructuring policy or deregulation policy, each one of us know that it was taken up in the year 90s, late 80s or starting of 90s, to end the monopoly of generating units and see that customer is being given a due credit, and it was customer centric, or focal point was customer. So what happened is the conventional grid was transformed to the smart grid by bringing in new techniques and technologies. And this deregulation policy, it was coined in United Kingdom, and restructuring was coined in US. It's one and the same. So once again, the customer-centric policies and the concept of making customer even an integrated part of a grid. So with the development or if the restructuring policy, there was a rapid penetration of DGs being observed. And these DGs were just connected to the grid following certain standards. So that is IEEE 1547 2003 standard. So PV, wind, microturbine, fuel cell, they were integrated to the grid. And we have a concept of smart grid, microgrid, nanogrid. So that is there. Now, what we need to understand is we are 1.3 billion people, a huge population. Like we need to address the issue of power. In India, we speak of smart grid, but still there are some areas wherein has to reach. So we could establish the link. I mean to say we could reach the village which is there in Manipur, the last village of India. We could reach, and we supplied power based on rural electrification concepts. So we are doing it as the government is very keen on it. So we should be happy that at least we could give them power. So 1.3 billion, this is a big challenge, and we need to reach. So it's a right of every customer to get a quality of power, and we have to supply them the power. So most consumers in areas, they are inaccessible to grid. Yes, due to the terrain regions, due to mountains, due to some hilly regions, we cannot have the distribution network. Fine, those things we have to see that these problems are addressed using rural electrification concept. So that is what the solution itself is, the next word which has been coined, that is decentralized energy solutions. And we know that the government is very keen, the present government and the previous governments, they have worked on it, and they have always supported the concept of renewable energy. And Ministry of Non-Renewable Energy and Ministry of Power, they have supported NNSM mission, that is National Solar Mission, Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, JNNSM. And solar power to reach every customer, or we need to, if I want to get it, it should be at the rate of 2 per kilowatt hour. If it is lesser than that, I will be very happy as a customer. So these things we need to take into account. So Union government, yes, providing capital subsidies, low interest loans for off-grid PV projects, solar mini grid. So they are working on it and they are focusing more on it. Like subsidies are being given, then promotion of like solar renewable energy is being considered. So even when it comes to electric vehicles for air pollution index and all to reduce that, all those things like EVs have been promoted. So these things are there and they are going on. Next slide, please. So the power system which was existing earlier, it was like this. That is the basic structure of the electric system. There was generation, transmission, distribution. But you can see that customer was given least preference. So he is not at all bothered in this. Next slide. The next slide shows that there are four things in smart grid. One is the generation, next is the transmission, the one which followed by transmission is distribution, and the final entity is customer. So customer is one among the prominent entities in the smart grid. So it's a customer centric, customer focus. So this is taken from NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology Smart Grid Framework, US. And you can see that there is a secure communication flow. At the same time, there is a electrical flow. So generation, transmission, distribution, customer. Then you have markets, operations, and the service providers. So energy market, that's very important when it comes to deregulated power system. Many algorithms have been developed, and in India also the things are started with respect to this. So short term, medium term, long term load forecasting. Based on that, energy markets have to work and they have to start functioning. And this complete slide, if you look at, it speaks about the concept of smart grid. So what actually smart grid has? It has customer, it has energy market, there is a SCADA or PMU unit, and there are service providers. So it is having the communication, it is having the control, it is having the electrical flows, it's having the concepts of IoT, or if I'm very particular, the concepts of ICT, information and communication technology. So this makes the grid smart. So next slide. I guess this slide, if you attended my previous lectures, you might have seen this. This is a very useful slide, which I usually float it in all the presentation, and I have taken it from one of the resource. So conventional grid and the smart grid, we know conventional grid, unidirectional power flow, and the smart grid bidirectional, because DGs are being connected in the distribution network. They are also pumping power from the utility and you are having, and DGs are being pumping power. So both the sides, the power is being flowing. So that is why it is called as bidirectional power flow. In the conventional, you have electromechanical. In the smart grid, you have digital control. One-way communication in conventional, two-way communication is a must in smart grid. Centralized generation in conventional, decentralized generation in smart grid. Centralized only at the high voltage network, nuclear, thermal, hydro. So they are looking for the base loads. It is a centralized generation. T&D losses, other losses will be there. So we have to compromise on it. But when it comes to smart grid, when I go for distributed generation, I am going to connect it in a system wherein the T&D losses are reduced. And I'm going to energize that particular segment of the network. Only few sensors are deployed in conventional. Sensors are deployed throughout in the smart grid. Usually I give an example of these mobile phones when we used to buy, say 15 or 18 years back or 20 years back. The phones were not having all this smartness. It was just a system which was used to connect a call, speak and disconnect. That's all. Nothing beyond that. Once the sensors were deployed, or once the sensors were a part of that phone, they became smartphones. So the same way, the concept is same. Deploy the sensors in the grid. So sensor deployment is a must. So sensors are deployed throughout. That's why it becomes smart. Manual monitoring, smart grid self-monitoring. Yes, it is going to monitor on its own because of the sensors. Manual restoration, here it is self-healing. because the actuation process, sensing and actuator, sensing and actuation. So self-healing. Next important point is failures and blackouts. Failures and blackouts means you need to understand in conventional grid, if something goes wrong, either it will be brownout, blackout, or complete failure of a system. But this is being exploited in smart grid in such a way that if something goes wrong, fault occurs, you are separating that system, the microgrid or DG which is being connected, and it becomes adaptive and islanding. So it becomes islanded and it starts energizing that particular segment of the network, even though it is disconnected. So there is no concept of failures and blackouts. So it is going to energize that particular segment of the network. So that is a very important concept of smart grid. Limited control in conventional, pervasive control everywhere. Omnipresence, I mean to say the sensors are present everywhere, so it becomes omnipresent. I may not call it as omniscient because we are not like that, but sensors are right, omnipresent. So pervasive control is there. Concept of ubiquitous computing can be brought inside here for the smart grid application. So you can have it. Focus on few customer. I told you once, I am reiterating, smart grid is totally customer centric. So customer is very important in smart grid. Next slide. So this is the functionality of smart grid. So smart grid functions. If I start from the clockwise direction, there is a consumer participation. Resist attack, yes, the attacks are there. I have spoken, like I'll be speaking on this. Attacks in the sense, the cyber attacks, as SCADA and PM units are there, definitely the cyber attacks are there. System is more vulnerable to the cyber attacks, so you have to be careful. But in smart grid, we resist it. So accommodate generation options. Yes, you have to accommodate DGs or distributed energy resources or the distributed generating units or distributed generators. Enable electricity market. Optimize assets. Yes, as and when required, you start working, optimize the assets. Then you see that quality of power is good enough. Definition as such, I don't have anything for quality of power or power quality. I want 50 hertz perfect sinusoid. It is possible. It is just possible. There are many problems. So many other engineers, like they will be working on it to get that 50 hertz sinusoid, perfect sinusoid. So that is what I, according to his quality of power. So till it comes, we have to. So we'll be just approaching that ideality. So we have to do a job. Enable high penetration of intermittent generation sources. Yes, intermittent. PV and wind are the most intermittent systems. Cloudy day, sunny day related to PV, wind. If it is a gusty, if there is no wind, all these things. When there is a wind, you get extract the power. When it is sunny, extract the power. So these are the things. Then go for self-healing. So these are all smart grid functions. So if you look at the smart grid, it is going to allow the private players to participate. A person can have a rooftop PV or rooftop wind system. He can use his power, or if it is a surplus, he can pump it to the utility. Next slide, please. The next slide, if you look at, it is being taken from one of the textbook, which is very comprehensively, like in this particular book, comprehensively things have been dealt. So I have taken it from Power System Signal Processing for Smart Grids. So if you look at, there are three dimensions. One is technological complexity, dimensional complexity, then the stakeholder complexity. Technological complexity, dispersed or distributed generators, power electronics, energy storage, ICT, information and communication technology, smart control, automation, monitoring market signals. Then dimensional complexity, physical aspects, systems and components, control aspects, social aspects, economical aspects, generation and trading, transport. So you need to understand, it's not only the technical aspects, the social aspects will be there, environment aspects will be there, economical aspects will be there. So now we speak more of economical aspects than speaking on more of economic aspect, because environment is the one which is very important. So we to see that carbon footprints are being reduced. So it's our job to see that even that thing we take into account or consider. So stakeholder, it may be industry, so production, transmission, supply chain, public authorities, policymakers, service providers, research institutes, universities, consumers. There are the three parameters, or I can call it as three entities which will be governing the smart grid: technologies, then the stakeholders, dimensions. So this is how the smart grid looks like. All are interlinked. Next slide, please. So I told you smart grid is hot. If you look at the conventional demand side management or demand management, then ICT, then the greenhouse gas reduction, energy security. You have smart appliances, energy storage is there. So now, as an electrical engineer or as a power systems engineer or as a power engineer, it's not like I should not learn communication, I should not learn ICT. No. Now the days have gone. We have to work on each and every concept here. We have to work on the communication, we have to work on the computation, we have to work on signal processing, we have to work on stochastic modeling, we have to work on energy storage, we have to work on power electronic support, we have to work on mathematical modeling, we have to work on load forecasting, we have to work on demand response, we have to work on demand management. So all these things are there. So life of electrical engineer has become colorful with all these technologies, because I see many of my students doing projects for some finance companies or some other companies. I tell them that there are a lot of opportunities in our field wherein you can contribute in terms of IoT, big data analysis, cloud computing, microcomputing, bring in microprocessors, DSP processors, then DSC controllers, bring in computational intelligence, whatnot. Everything can be brought for the analysis of smart grid. So only one thing I would like to say here. I used to hear it from some of my professors. They used to say the way I draw amount from ATM, the moment I draw the amount, the SMS will be sent to me saying that this amount has been drawn. So on the similar grounds, I want the grid to function in India also. Amount of power consumed or amount of surplus amount which is being surplus power which is being pumped to the grid, that has to be reported, and that point of time I should know what amount of money I'm getting or what amount of money I'm going to save. So it's all win-win situation for everyone. So utility, consumers or customers. So we have to see that we join hands with the utility to work on demand management or demand site management. So we have to see that those issues are addressed properly. Next slide, please. So this is one example which usually I give it to my students, and it is taken from one of the article, a report by Andrew Kudden from the University of Southampton. And it's a very beautiful slide. If you look at, you'll understand it's like a seesaw in the parks wherein kids will play. And if you look at the diagrams, both the sides, generation and demand. One side is generation, other side is demand. If both are balanced, system frequency is 50 hertz. The center diagram. The left one, if the generation goes down and demand increases, the frequency comes down. So frequency is coming down. That is not accepted. On the right hand side, extreme right, you can see that demand is going, like generation is going high and the demand is going low. So frequency is going high. So it is linked to the generation. Generation is less, frequency will be less. Generation is more, frequency will be more. And if both the things are right, yes, it is 50 hertz. But it never happens. It's a game, it's a play. Like you have to, the kids, the way they play, you have to do that. So throughout our lives, as a power engineer, it's our job to balance this generation and demand. If that is perfect, 50 hertz is perfect. So this is what you need to understand as students. And if you are researchers, yes, this is the only thing which you need to see. You should balance. That's the end result. Like that's all. We need to only balance. Our job is that. Next slide, please. So technologies, just I thought of bringing it. Technologies for the rural electrification. We have standalone systems, so 0 to 0.1 kilowatt, and Pico grid 0 to 1 kilowatt, nano grid 0 to 5 kilowatt, microgrid 5 to 100 kilowatt, mini grid 0 to 100,000 kilowatt. So these are all the Technologies which will be used, the microgrid for the universities, for the campuses, it suits well. Nanogrid 0 to 5 kilowatt. So we know standalone systems which are deployed on rooftops, pico grids also we know. Mini grid is something from 0 to 100,000 kilowatts. So these are the technologies for rural electrification. Next slide. So typical nanogrid, and this I have taken it from Dr. B.G. Fernandez presentation. He is professor he's with IIT Bombay. He's leading the department, and he has presented in the year 2015. The same slide I'm using here. Typical nanogrid, the renewable source is there. There is a nanogrid distribution bus, and you have zone 1, zone 2, room 1, room 2. There is a P interface, and it is being connected to the grid. There is a battery also. That's the typical nanogrid. Next slide. This is the smart grid. Say nanogrid, microgrid to virtual power source, and it's also nanogrid to smart grid. So we coin it as community-based solution. Yes, I have a nanogrid, I have rooftop PVs, I have rooftop wind, so I can have it. Nanogrids connected, make a microgrid. Microgrids, network of microgrids, that makes virtual power source. So networking of nanogrid is a microgrid. Networking of microgrid makes a virtual power source. So that goes on. So this slide is also even taken from BGF's presentation. Next slide, please. So I thought, let me give you some introduction on smart grid basics. And the topic which I'm going to present you now, this is very, very, very important for engineers who are working in this field. Signal processing, it's not far. It's the integral part of power systems. Without this, we can't function. Let it be power systems or power electronics, we need to understand the concept of signal processing. So signal processing in smart grid. Next slide. So what is actually DSP, digital signal processing? If you look at the diagram, there is a, one side there is analog signal, ADC is there in a digital computer. Or before that, if you look at, once if you're working with analog computer, speech signal, then you have analog computer, then a bit loud. You mean to say it's auditory response. So how it is going to get the information. But when it comes to digital computer, it's like mic, analog signal, which is being given to ADC. ADC is being, like that output is given to the DSP processors, and DSP back to the analog and the output. So you need to understand one thing here. The A to D converters are there. A to D converters convert the analog signal to digital signals, and digital signals are used for processing, but the external world still demands the analog signal. Processing analog signal is difficult. That's why for processing business, I go for digital signals. So we have ADC, then DAC. In between that, you can have DSPs. So this diagram, I have taken it separately. ADC and DAC I have taken, but the present day computers or microcontrollers or the micro chips, whatever you use, they have inbuilt ADC, DAC, all those things are there. And this slide was taken, I have taken it from one of the workshops at ISC, which I was attending way back in 2003. Next slide, please. So this is a very important slide. Please understand. You have analog signal. Please pay your attention to this. You have analog signal. You sample them. You have to sample because you are going to give a digital meaning to the analog signal. Analog signal may be from 0 to 5 volts. The 0 to 5 volt signal is being sampled, then quantized to give a digital meaning to a signal. Aim is to obtain either 1 or 0. So binary logic. So I go for sampling. If you look at the first diagram there, sampling at regular intervals of time. So sample signal periodically. So you're going to sample the signal which is there periodically. Once you sample it, go for horizontal things. That is, I mean to say, you are cutting the things in a horizontal way. Say, for example, if I need 4 levels, I can cut that signal into 4 levels. That is called as quantization levels. The vertical levels are the samplings, horizontal levels are the quantization. There are 4 levels: 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Now, if you look at the diagram, you have analog signal, and the second diagram, you have the levels and the squared waves you are getting. See, if the squared wave you are getting, either it is just above or below that particular level. So you have to understand that. The thing is, why I'm focusing on this is, here while quantization, we come across something called as quantization errors or quantization noise. We have to avoid that. Okay, so that is important. But in order to avoid that, I cannot just go on increasing the number of quantization levels. I need to see that the signal is non-uniform, then I go for multiple level of quantization. If it is uniform, there is no point. We need not to go for it. So quantization levels are there. I hope you understood. The first diagram you have sampled, second diagram you have quantized, third diagram you are getting the value, that is 1010. Each sample which is cutting that particular signal, analog signal. So where it is, whether it's in the quantization level 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 or 1, 1. If it is near 1, 0, you have that 1, 0. Then followed by 0, 1, 0, the second diagram. Okay, so that is there. Third diagram, if you look at, says that the level is 1, 0, the second level is 0, 1, then the second one, the next one is 0, 0, then followed by that. So you have that quantization levels. Analog signal x of t, you are multiplying it with a continuous running of impulses, that's train of impulses. You cut it at regular intervals of time, go for quantization, that is horizontal slicing. You slice the way it is, like the bread is being sliced, right? Vertical slicing means piece of breads. Horizontal, if you slice, bits will come. That bits are your digital bits. So that is how you need to understand how the analog is mapped to the digital signal. Wherever it is cutting, some difference will be there. It may not reach exactly to 1, 0 or 0, 0. So if it is nearer also, we'll take 1, 0. If it is less than 1, 0 also, we'll take 1, 0. If it is in between, the option is yes, definitely we can have an option there. So we can go for this kind of thing. This is the digitization of the signal. So analog signal is being converted to digital signal, and the meaning is in terms of 1, 0, 0, 1 and all. So it is in terms of zeros and ones. Next slide, please. Now, why digital? Yes, the question is very important. Why I should speak of digital? Because of the development time, less development time, cost is less, power consumption is less, reusable and upgradable. What are the bottlenecks? The bottlenecks are high speed A to D conversion. Once I am converting analog signal to digital conversion. What is the solution? What is the way out? Nyquist theorem or Nyquist criterion. What is that Nyquist criterion? If a signal is 50 hertz, if I am sampling should be done at least twice of the signal. So if I'm having 50 hertz signal, sample it at 100 hertz or more, not below 100 hertz. That is the Nyquist criteria to avoid the concept of aliasing. So aliasing is very important concept in signal processing. You need to rule it out. How to rule it out? You have to go for Nyquist theorem. Nyquist theorem, Fs is greater than or equal to 2 Fi, incoming signal. So incoming signal is 50 hertz. Minimum sampling frequency should be 100 hertz. So processing too complex for real-time performance. Yes, definitely bottlenecks will be there, but still processing will be done in a detailed way. So the signals, whatever I process, that will fetch me the required results. What are the next options to do that? We need to go for the processor, which is having a high A to D rate, conversion rate, which is working on higher speeds. Higher speeds means what? Higher speed means million instructions per second. There in a processor, you have two things. One is floating point processor, other is fixed point processor. Fixed point processor, the ones what you are learning, microprocessors 8085, then 8096, and then you have learned microcontroller 8051. They're all microcontroller, they're all fixed point processors. Floating point processors are also existing. So they are used for our DSP analysis and applications. So floating point processor, in that we need to understand million instructions per seconds have to be executed, or million floating point instructions have to be executed per second. MIPS or MFLOPS, this is the concept of the processes. Now, coming to the math required for the signal processing. The transformations, yes, we have to transform a signal from time domain to frequency domain. When it comes to digital, I use Z transform because they convert the equations to simple algebraic equations. That is very important point. Any equation which is very complex, that will be converted to simple algebraic equation. That's why I go for Z transforms. Time domain to frequency domain. I have got FT, DFT, FFT, and so on. So I know what is FT, what is Fourier series. If I'm working on Fourier series, yes, Fourier, when it started to present, Fourier presented the concept and his paper was rejected in the first go. And after 30 years, once again, the team invited and the same paper was accepted. But the problem, what happened with Fourier was applying his concept of Fourier series to only periodic signals. He was not in a position to address the periodic signals. Then he thought of going for Fourier transform. He and his successors got results for that. A beautiful result, if I would like to quote here, Fourier transform, when it was applied to, say, discrete time sinusoid or a sinusoidal signal, continuous time sinusoid, the resultant was and continuous. Please understand this. Fourier transform, when it is applied to continuous time sinusoid, frequency domain is aperiodic. It is aperiodic and it is continuous. But the same Fourier transform, if it is applied to discrete time sinusoid, then the response in frequency domain is periodic and continuous. So one thing I would like to quote here, Fourier transform, it is applied to continuous time sinusoid, the resultant is continuous. But the same Fourier transform, if it is applied to discrete time sinusoid, the resultant is periodic and continuous. Then you got a magical result. Anything which is aperiodic is transformed to periodic. That itself is a beautiful concept. That's why discrete time signal processing has picked up. That's why digital signal processing has picked up, not analog signal processing in this regard. So you have to understand DFT is a discrete Fourier transform. We are discretizing the frequency domain spectrum. That's why it is discrete Fourier transform. The journey started from Fourier series, Fourier transform, then DFT. So Fourier series only for periodic, Fourier transform for aperiodic signals, either it is continuous or discrete. But when it is applied to discrete, the resultants are periodic and continuous. That aperiodicity to periodicity is accepted. That's what I need. Then you have that periodicity, continuous things are there. The continuous things cannot be processed with a computer. So what I need to do? I need to sample once again there. So what I need to discretize the frequency domain samples. That's why it's a discrete Fourier transform. Now, discrete Fourier transform in the sense, you need to understand that the discrete Fourier transform is very simple. It is taking a lot of time. So what they did, they decimated the discrete Fourier transform into two parts. They decimated the discrete Fourier transform into two parts, the even part and the odd part, the real signal and the even signal and the odd signal. So this is how the first Fourier transform was picked up. So DFT, FFT came into picture. People speak of wavelets and whatnot, many filtering, many techniques are there. Then what is been doing? The beauty of digital filters, the beauty of digital signal processing is windowing concept. There is no concept of windowing in analog signal processing. There is no concept of it. I have the signals which cannot be limited. But in case of digital signal processing, I have a window concept. What is this window concept? You have to select number of samples, right? DFT itself is a window. Discrete Fourier transform itself is a window. 0 to n minus of 1 means n samples are there. So I need to go for windowing. The infinite signal cut into finite way. That is the concept of windowing. So these are all the things which as a student you need to know in case of signal processing. Next slide, please. So why DSP is needed? Because one hardware, many tasks. So we have same hardware, multiple softwares can be developed for multiple things. So only one hardware, I need not to change the hardware repeatedly. That's why DSP has attained that importance. So upgradability and flexibility is there. So new code upgradation is easier. So analog thing, it's difficult. You have to solder every time. That's very difficult. So one hardware, multiple tasks. Only you change the software, the applications, what you want, you will get it. Next slide, please. So this is why I brought the digital signal processing in case of power systems. You please understand the role of digital signal processing or signal processing in power systems. If you look at the slide says signals in power systems, that is in context to the smart grid. There is a power flow. There is a concept of harmonics, voltage and current, then unbalanced voltage, then the voltage fluctuations, stability and transients. So in case of power flow, you have voltage profile and the power profile. In case of harmonics, either steady state or time varying. In case of unbalanced voltage, steady state or time varying. Fluctuations, flicker, sags or swells. Stability, frequency or voltage. Transients, lightning, short circuit switching. So for analyzing all these things, I need the concept of signal processing. Specifically, when it is coming to the transient analysis, I need the concept of signal processing. I need to understand that within a fraction of a second or in a fraction of a nanosecond or a microsecond, the surge will come and it will completely spoil, it will destroy my power system. That surge analysis can be only done with the help of signal processing. In that particular time frame, you broaden the spectrum. If the spectrum is broadened, you can analyze the things properly. So please understand that signal processing has its own role to play in power systems. Without signal processing, power system operation is not at all possible. Next slide, please. So I told you what is the role of power signal processing now. In the smart grid, I have power electronics, I have renewable distributed generators, then the sensor and monitoring, demand response, communication, electrical loads are there, active distribution networks are there, and you are going to give it to the grid signal. So there is a smart grid, all the inputs are there. You are going to give it to grid signal. You are giving it from the other end also. Then the output in terms of cycles, they are filtered from hours to whatever it is. The signals are being sampled there. You look at that. Production, smart filtering, power quality, voltage control, forecasting, parameter, and performance applications. Then smart signal processing, signal decomposition, computational intelligence, probabilistic analysis, data mining, compression, pattern recognition, detection. All these things will come in power systems. I can apply each and everything. So you have to be careful. These are all the domains when signal processing can be brought inside the power system. Next slide, please. So I'll leave it to you. Just navigate through the slide once for 2 to 3 seconds. You have voltage and current signals. Analog conditioning is being done. Transducers are there. Low pass filters are there. Then the first step, the results. Second step, and the results. In first step, what happens? Three-phase signals are decomposed into time-varying harmonics. And these are then processed by symmetrical components. The result provides the engineer with a unique tool to visualize the nature of time-varying imbalances and asymmetrics in the power system. So you can just go through it at your convenience. Whenever you find time, you can go through it. So Fourier series transform, short time Fourier transform, discrete Fourier transform, Violette transform, fast Fourier transform. All the techniques are being used and how they work. Next slide, please. So this slide, if you look at, it is going to give you the information about measurement, monitoring, and processing sequences for acquisition, analysis, detection, extraction. I have a signal, which is actual signal, which is physical in nature. I use transducer to convert it to electrical signal. And that signal is basically a primary signal, which has to be processed. And either it is in terms of RMS or FFT, we need to see. Then secondary signal processing, we have to segmentation, FFT analysis, the analysis of probability, all those things. So I have a signal, convert it into digital, before converting it to digital, pre-processing. Then once the pre-processing is done, go for analog to digital conversion. Once the analog to digital conversion is done, give it to DSP. In that DSP, you either go for DFT, FFT, wavelets, whatever things you need. You can have it. Next slide, please. So I told you Fourier, the journey started with Fourier transform, then DFT, discrete Fourier transform, then fast Fourier transform, then short time Fourier transform, then wavelets, modified DFT and filter banks, they were used. And the wavelets to modify DFT and filter banks, time varying harmonic analyzers, then advanced signal processing in smart grid. So you have to know the basics. I'm not telling you to get into try to get all the details of signal processing. No, whichever is required for us. Basically, I'm speaking of windows. Please understand this. DFT or FFT, it's a window, small window. I have an infinite signal. I'm going to cut it for a finite time. Okay. In frequency domain, if I'm cutting, that particular window is for the analysis. Other things, I need not to scratch my head. I need not to bother about it. Next slide, please. So signal processing for smart grids, characterization, identification, analysis, techniques, time frequency, then AI, specifications, sampling, and segmentation. Next slide, please. So I have given this example. There are 3 buses. We have to measure the voltage. We have to measure the current. So data from measurement system is being taken. Either it may be related to the buses, either it may be related to the power stability things, balancing things, power factor or impedance, the data, how it is being analyzed. There also the concept of signal processing will come. Next slide. So this slide speaks about the sub-metering, metering, the communication technologies being used, and the World Wide Web. And if the look at the right-hand side at the controls here, in between the control center and the server, there is a concept of signal processing. So sub-metering, metering, signal processing, then the communication technologies, once again signal processing, gateway, then the servers. So this is making complete picture. This is giving you the concept of metering and smart metering. So the concept of signal processing communications are essential for the processing of these signals. Next slide, please. Just for an example, dynamic over voltage. Then voltage signal, if you look at, it has gone high. And I told you it is for less than a nanosecond. I don't know what I should call. That may disturb everything. The power system may collapse. So you need to understand how to process it. You broaden that spectrum and start analyzing. That is the application of signal processing. Next slide, please. Now, this is very important. I do understand that we always work with low pass filter. And I always tell that low pass filters are widely used and accepted in power engineering applications. So I'm going to use them. So harmonic content, since the harmonic content is not known in advance, it is necessary to guarantee that aliasing will not occur. I told you about aliasing. Aliasing is nothing but the concept of signals being mixing up. So loss of information. To avoid that, we have to go for Nyquist criterion. If 50 hertz signal is given, sampling should be at least 100 hertz. That you need to understand. So I have taken the Butterworth response. The Butterworth response means the passband and the stopband both are monotonic in response. So if I want to work with this, I need to be very careful. Like I have to see that the region FC and FS by 2. The region between FC and FS by 2 is not used to carry information. So you need to understand this. FC to FS by 2, that particular part is not going to carry any information. And aliasing can occur in this region. So it's very difficult now. If aliasing occurs, you have to rule it out. So the harmonic of interest must fall in the harmonics region itself. So if you look at the diagram, there is a harmonics region, there is a aliasing region. I have to focus on the harmonic region. Harmonic of interest should fall in the harmonics region, not in the aliasing region. So if it falls in FSC to FS by 2, then there is a problem. The problem will be like it will crop up to multiple things. Many things will come into picture. So what we need to do, if you are having harmonic of interest, it should fall in the harmonics range. So this analog filter, we also call it as anti-aliasing filter or guard filter. So see that the response, if your frequency of interest, the harmonic of interest is there, it should fall in the passband region from 0 to FC. FC to FS by 2 not actually accepted. So you have to be careful about that. Next slide, please. So smart meter and the conventional meter. The conventional meters, people used to come and read. There afterwards, then manual reading was there. Then they made it automated. Then they used to store it in database. Then it was given to energy suppliers or the distributed network operators, DNOs, or other emerging service companies, that is aggregators. But in case of smart grid, what I have smart meters which have bidirectional communication. So they are communicating with the gateway either through NAN or WAN. NAN is neighbor area-hood network. WAN is wide area network. So they are communicating with it, and the gateway is there. Then the meter data management is also there. It is being connected to database. So directly from the gateway also energy suppliers are being communicating. So I need to say that the smart meters are working in a bidirectional way of communication. The communication is bidirectional. That is important. In conventional, only unidirectional communication is there. Next slide, please. So one example, just to see how the things work. Like functional, the problem if it is there. If the smart meter displays current harmonic measure up to fifth harmonic, what should be the minimum sampling frequency used in signal conditioning? Assume that frequency of the supply is 50 hertz. So you need to understand that the harmonic measurement is up to fifth. So 5 into 50 hertz, that becomes 250 hertz. The fundamental frequency into fifth harmonic, 250 hertz. If I want to sample it, I have to sample it. I double of that 250 hertz. So at least 500 hertz sampling frequency is a must. If it is not 500 hertz sampling frequency, things will be difficult. So minimum sampling frequency should be 2 into 250 hertz. So Fs is the sampling frequency, which has to be set to 500 hertz. That is as per the Nyquist criterion. And this part, this particular problem, just to make you feel understand, it is being picked from the smart grid technology text. Next slide, please. So you have functional block diagram of smart meter. In this functional block diagram, I told you there is a signal, physical signal converted to electrical signal using transducer. Signal conditioning, like signal conditioning means the signal will be attenuated. You have to amplify, you have to remove the noise. Then you have to, once it is amplified, give it to ADC, then compute it, give it to communication block. So signal acquisition, signal conditioning, A to D, computation and communication. These are the 5 key blocks of smart meter. Next slide, please. So I have to run through the slides now. Wide area monitoring systems. So next slide. So this is a wide area monitoring system concept. You have a generation, then the transmission is there, then the distribution. So in the distribution side, you can see that there is a distribution, generation, customer. So I need to call it as a microgrid. If you look at the diagram, you have a generation. So generation related communication is done using local area networks, and they are being connected to metropolitan area networks. Metropolitan area networks are being connected to wide area networks. So you have to understand this. So generation control, transmission control, market signals, distribution control, they are connected to wide area network. Information from each and every bus, seat and every generator through LAN, connected to MAN, MAN to WAN, the generation control, transmission control, market signals, and the distribution control. Then on the other side, if there are the feeders from transmission to distribution, there is a local area network. Then there is a fan, that is field area network. In case of microgrid, if you look at the right hand side, the field area network, the home area network. Through home area network, you have connected it to AMI, that is advanced metering infrastructure. Then advanced metering infrastructure to the NAN, neighborhood area network. Then the EANs. Then you have the HANs and the AMIs being connected to the TMNs or NANs. So this is all communication related. So LAN, local area network, MAN, metropolitan area network, WAN, wide area network. Okay, so FAN, field area network, these are all common terminologies. So this makes the system more smart. So wide area monitoring is a must. So that's why wide area monitoring of the systems, WAMs. Next slide, please. So group of monitoring assessment applications in power system is called as WAMS, wide area monitoring system. So I would like to speak on the SCADA. SCADA is not able to provide most of the information for power grids. It's an old system. The input data for both system consists of analog current and voltage, which directly come from CT and PT. So I'm going to sense the current from CT and going to sense the voltage from PT. So they are coming from CT and PT. In the SCADA systems, this data after processing will be sent to RTUs, that is remote terminal units, and the data will be either digital RMS voltage or digital RMS current. Then this microprocessor device interfaces devices in real power time to supervisory control. So you have the communication. The communication between the RTU and the SCADA control system is based on IEC 61850. IEC 61850 means International Electrotechnical Commission 61850. That's a standard which we are using for intelligent electronic devices, IEDs. Okay, so RTU to SCADA also use the same concept. So group of monitoring and assessment application is WAMS. Next slide, please. We have a concept of PMU. I told you that SCADA is an old system. PMU will take over. So synchrophasor technology opens a new window for power system observability. So you have to go for, you have to observe the things. Phasor measurement unit, PMUs. So they work on synchrophasor technology and they have opened a new window for power system observability. So you are going to observe. So PMUs are able to provide synchronized and accurate data. Either it may be frequency, voltage, current phasors, vibration, temperature, all those things for the power system. They are all important and key parameters which are very prominent to work on. Frequency, voltage are the ones which are really needed. So I need to work on the things and I'm getting the synchronized data, that is the accurate data. Then I wish to go ahead with the PMUs instead of going with the SCADA. So utilization of PMUs has become quite important in the fast monitoring, production, and even control of new and complicated systems. However, data quality and communication are the main concerns for synchrophasor applications. So please understand, for PMU, the communication technology which I am using, it should be very high-end communication technology, not less than 4G. So if it is 5G, well and good. So data quality and communication are a must for the synchrophasor applications because they're all time stamped. You have to get the accurate data, that is important. Then the standards like IEEE 1344, then IRIGB, then IEEE 37.118, they deal with synchrophasor technology comprehensively. Next slide, please. So PMU, I told you it's an electronic device and it is used to estimate the synchrophasor frequency, rate of change of frequency, acquired voltage or current waveforms according to United Coordinated Universal Time, UTC reference. I told you that's a time stamped through GPS. So PMUs are installed into an electrical substation and interface to an electrical grid via standard instrument transformers. Synchrophasor is the magnitude and angle of cosine signal of voltage or current that is measured in an absolute point in time. So these are related to phasor measurement unit. Will be solved using this. Next. So I have analog inputs and I told you low pass filter. Low pass filters are also called as anti-aliasing filters. You have to filter out some things, give it to ADC, then you have to give it to phasor processing unit. Yeah, there is a phase lock oscillator. So that is also important. You know how to lock certain frequencies. You have a GPS antenna, the GPS receiver, then given to the phasor data streaming, which follows the standard, which uses the standard IEEE 37.118 for the communication networks. So get the inputs, go for pre-processing, give it to ADC, then the phasor processing unit, then stream it and give it to the communication network. Next slide. So I told you V and I, voltage and current are important. I have to sense them using PT and CT. I have to get it. I have to go for anti-aliasing, that is low pass filter, give it to ADC, give it to microprocessor. Now microcontrollers can be used, DSP processors can be used. it goes with your interest. Then you can give it to modem and the output. There is a GPS receiver, phase lock oscillator, you are giving it to analog to digital converter. So after that, you are giving it to a microprocessor. So this is based on the applications of signal processing to the PMUs. So the standard is C37.118.12101. There are two classes here, M class and P class. M class for protection measurement and the P class for protection. M class has a lower response time but greater accuracy. P has faster response but less accuracy. So it depends what kind of classes you need to use. So if you want to use something for real-time production and control that require low latency, go for P class. That is what is a must. So here, in case of PMU, the data acquisition, V and I sensing, the filtering, the conversion, and the concept of communicating, that becomes important. Next slide, please. So this is the diagram which is related to the grid network. The communication network is there. The grid processing things are there. Then there is a PDC. PDC is nothing but phasor data concentrator. The grid processing means there are algorithms, communication network. You have communication network, which are very important. The physical layer, MAC layer, network layer, transport layer, application layer. 5 layers are being taken for the communication network. Grid network is there. At each buses, PMUs are being deployed, and PMU cost has reduced. That's why PMU is picking up. So POSCO says we need not worry about the concepts of PMU cost now. You can deploy. Don't go for analysis of where to connect it, where not to connect it. Don't go for optimization. Connect it wherever it is required because the cost of that has fallen down. Don't worry. That's what is the term used by POSCO. Next slide, please. SCADA versus PMU. I have a CT and PT, current transformer and the potential transformer. So CTs and PTs, they are like processed, and the result, I'm telling you, SCADA is RMS voltage and RMS current. It is being given to RTU through IEC 61850. But when it comes to VAMs, when I'm using PMU, CT and PT are taken, voltage phasors and current phasors are taken. There we have taken RMS, here we are taking the phasors. Direct phasors are available with me. So that's why this particular VAMS technology has picked. So it is being connected to phasor data concentrator. So there, in case of SCADA, it is RTU. Here it is PDC. So you take CTs and PTs, RMS voltage and currents are there in SCADA. In case of VAMS, the phasors are there in VAMS. Next slide, please. So we know smart grid, it is associated with distributed power generation. So we know that it is transformed. So the conventional power grid, what they do, they go for offline data analysis. In smart grid, we need to go for real-time data. Then the SCADA have played a great role. No, of course, no issue with it, but still it is inefficient and reliable operation. They are efficient and reliable in some cases, but still they fail in certain things. The challenges associated with the SCADA are low sampling rate, that is 2 to 4 samples per cycle. This is not accepted because lack of time synchronization. It leads to a lot of problems later on. I don't want to work at a lower rates, 2 to 4 samples. I need to work at 50 or 60 samples per second. So that can be done with the help of PMUs, which are basically electronic devices. And they are accurate and fast PMUs, and they are very fast when compared to SCADA. Specifically for dynamic behavior of power system, PMUs can be taken up. So implemented in most part of power system to achieve wide area monitoring, protection and control. So they are used for wide area monitoring, protection and control. WAMPAC. Next slide, please. So you have a phase lock oscillator, which is used for time tagging, that is for generating, that is sending out with the phasors within the second, and time tags are added to analog voltage and current signals, then through which they are passed through filter and A to D converter. Then once it is sent to the microprocessor, they compute the voltage and current phasors, frequency and ROCOF, rate of change of frequency, and binary information. These data are then transformed within frames to phase data concentrators. So what you have time tagged thing, then you have the data from the microprocessor, give it to the PDCs, and the PDCs will be using that data. So these data, once the frames to phasor data concentrators are there, which are normally located in primary substations, and they are archived for certain reasons, that is for the offline assessment or even for the online assessment of a system health. That is the historical data which is being preserved and which is being which is available. So it's sort of keeping the database. Next slide. So VAMS architecture, I told you, if you look at the diagram, come to the bottom, like the last layer, sensors and actuators are there for all the layers. There is a PMU to PMUK. So IEDs are there. They are communicating with PDCs. PDCs means phasor data concentrators. Phasor data concentrators are communicating with the super phasor data concentrators. Super data concentrators are communicating with SCADA, that is supervisory control data acquisition system or energy management system. So one thing you need to understand, sensing and actuation that should be done within 10 to 100 milliseconds. Online monitoring is very important. The time window is 10 to 100 milliseconds. Then from PDC to super PDC, it is 100 to 1000 millisecond. And from super PDC to SCADA, it is greater than 1 second. So time is very important for PMU when it comes for wide area monitoring system. 10 to 100 milliseconds, you have to sense the data. Next slide, please. So I told you the PMUs are connected and they are communicating to PDCs. PDCs are communicated to the super PDCs. So you can see the GPS response is there. The PMUs are being connected at each bus and you're going to sense the data from different locations. Next. So performance, it is based on availability, reliability, accuracy, latency, and message rate. Availability that is measured by PMU can be sent to the PDC, how fast it will send, and in what time span or time window. That is out. So it is a means that data measured by the PMU can be sent to the PDC. Reliability, what is the strength and sufficient connectivity of a network? That is very important. I told you data and communication network. These are important things. Then reliable universal communication infrastructure is crucial in both structure and operation of WAN communication system. Accuracy is the difference between the measured value and the actual value. And the accuracy index is given by the magnitude and angle, which is called total vector error. And please understand, total vector error should be less than 1%. However, this is changing based on PMU applications. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the concepts related to message rate resolution, I told you the PMU takes the data, which is taking rapid physical measurements, either voltage or current, then going for time stamping, and reports the phasor for each cycle or 2 cycles. Then the reporting phase rate is expressed in frames per second. Then the data loss, PMU's data loss may occur due to GPS signal. Please understand this. If there is a data loss, it may be due to GPS signal or communication network congestion. The communication network will be congested. So what you need to do is, you cannot accept that way. When it is to be sent in that particular time frame, it has to be sent. So generally, PDCs collect PMU's data based on the timestamp of the data stream. They also have a timeout function. Therefore, PMU data that does not arrive within a specified time will be dropped. Will be dropped means they will take it later, but at that point of time, whatever raw data comes, that junk data, they are not going to accept it. They're going to just drop it. So I told you 5G technology is 100 times faster and is being used for many applications now. And the transfer rate is up to 20 Gbps. We are using it. And 5G has enhanced the mobile broadband, that is eMBB. That is for massive machine type communication and ultra reliability, low latency communication. We use it in microgrid also. Next slide, please. So I have given you the communication methods and the advantages and the disadvantages. Each and every technology has its own advantages and disadvantages. As of now, we speak of 5G, which has low latency. That is, the delay is less than 1 millisecond and data rate is up to 20 Gbps, gigabits per second. Next slide, please. So once again, the same diagram, the PMUs are connected at each bus and we say that control signal production commands are there, fax devices are there, they are being connected to PDC and super PDC. You go for state estimation, online stability analysis and go for control and production. Next slide. So cyber physical system entity. So next slide, please. You can see the diagram. There is a physical part wherein GT, DC are there, generation, transmission, distribution, customers are there. Then in between generation and in between the physical part and cyber part, there is a sensing and actuator and communication channels. The cyber part is grid control center, monitoring, optimization, control rate aspects, the SCADA, the PMUs, the VAMs, everything will come here. That's why it becomes cyber system, cyber part. The physical part is GT-DC. The integration of both these things is called as cyber physical system. Next slide, please. So generation, transmission, distribution, I told you the different things which are there. The operation is there, wide area network, the field area network, local area networks for electricity markets, service business, service providers, customers at the bottom, they are connected to internet or e-business. So you please understand that the e-business internet, wherein these electricity markets and the operator like service providers are being connected, they are always vulnerable to the cyber attacks. That's why cyber physical system attacks have to be avoided. So you have to go for defense modeling of cyber physical system. The cyber attacks are rapid these days, like they go for attacking even which not only affects the system, it may affect complete power system. A small change in voltage or frequency can do that. Next slide, please. So cyber physical system, cyber world, physical world, sensing and actuation. In between you have communication network. Next slide. There are cyber physical attacks on the smart grid. All the things are connected to smart grid. Healthcare, food and water, communication, financial services, manufacturing, national defense, then transportation. They are all prone to cyber physical attacks. If the smart grid, as it is a part of smart city, if this is failed, all other things get failed. Next slide. Once again, the same thing, GTDC, physical system, cyber system, like you have SCADA, PMU, WAMs and all, data interaction, controlling and measuring devices, same diagram, same concept with different diagram. Next slide. So if you look at the graph, x-axis is cyberspace, y-axis the physical space. In y-axis, you have power flow assessment, operation and extended EMS. In case of x-axis, you have information flow, cyber optimization, cyber security. So cyber physical modeling is there, cyber physical assessment is there, then cyber optimization for reliable operation of power system, then cyber security for cloud. That becomes cyber physical system. It's as good as a resultant of two things, physical space and the cyber space. The resultant will be cyber physical system. So that is cyber space, cyber security, cyber optimization for reliable operation of power system. All those things will come for the information. Next slide, please. Just an example, electrical car, if you take Mahindra E20, full range is 140, with full charge it is 16.5 units. So per kilometer it will be 0.12. So total cost for running 1 kilometer using the electrical vehicle, it will be 72 paisa. Next slide. EVs versus other vehicles, because it is also part of smart grid, in order to reduce the carbon footprints and promote the concept of EVs due to the depleting fossil fuels. Many things are there. So this electrical vehicles, battery state of charge, passing slots, and the recharge stations, ranking and rating of electrical recharge stations are important. For other vehicles, it's just the safety, traffic flow, then the consumption and emissions. Next slide, please. This is once again a cyber physical system. One article which I had which is being published from my end, I took the diagram wherein vehicle to grid concept was given, and there were aggregate regions and the parking slot units with the remote roadside units were taken. Analysis was done and it was communicated to the smart grid. And it's the conceptual view of V2G in case of smart city. Next slide, please. To which bus I can connect this aggregator? Here it is GV, you can bring in DGs also, or power pooling can be done, you can connect it, that is also there. Next slide. EV architecture. Here aggregator is there. You have the EVs, flexible EVs and then inflexible. Flexible means they support the EV aggregator. Inflexible means whatever they say, EV has to listen. They are not going to give full control of charging and discharging to the EV aggregator. Then EV aggregator will communicate with the electricity market, then the distributed system operator, and TSO and DSO will have communication. So this makes complete market of a electrical vehicle. So even smart grid has a concept of energy market. So EV aggregation architecture, I have shown it to you. Next slide. So the topics of research which you can take up: assessment of wind, PV and all, optimal DG placement For that matter, even you can go for STATCOMs, DSTATCOMs, SVCs, SVRs, and all for reactive power management. Then you have the computational intelligence algorithms, then the multi-agent communication, the identity detection, grid synchronization, MPPT, then the power electronics interface, then control strategy, then reducing the number of components in the power electronic interface for multi-level inverters and all those things you can take. Next slide, please. Signal processing for smart grid, bio big data analysis for smart grid, cloud and IoT for smart grid, communication protocols for smart grid, wireless communication for smart grid. All these things will be there. So these are the references. Next slide. Next. 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 Thank you. And I think I have given you the overview of smart grid architecture and technology. Thank you. If you have questions, I can answer you next 2 to 3 minutes because I have to attend another meeting now. Meghna, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have the Q&A session. The first question is, how bidirectional power can be achieved in smart grid?
Bidirectional power in the sense what happens is you have power from the utility, and if the surplus power is there from the distributed generator, he is also pumping the power. Both the things are there. Bidirectional power flow is there. Okay, so that is a part of smart grid. But how to solve that problem itself is a big challenge. Next question.
The next question is, can we have prepaid metering in electrical energy?
Prepaid metering, postpaid metering, you can I'm not sure about that prepaid or postpaid, but the thing is smart metering should be there. If smart metering is there, even you can think of your own tariffs. You can work on the value. If there is a value, you pump the power and gain more money, get the incentives. If there is a value, you sell power, gain more money. So if you are selling, you will gain more money. If you are drawing that at a lesser price, fine. So prepaid, postpaid, fine, that can be brought inside. Once it is smart, you can do it. Next question.
The third question is, sir, can you suggest projects on smart grid for final year students?
For final year students, I have given list of projects. That's why I know that my students and other students are there who are definitely looking out for projects. What you can do is you can start from load forecasting. From there to the smart grid achievement you can do. You can work on DG placements using computational intelligence. You can work on novel load flow strategies. You can bring in game theory for that. You can bring in the concepts of cloud computing for smart meter data storing. You can bring in big data analysis for smart meter data analysis. You can bring in IoT for complete connection of DGs, DERs, and EVs and V2Gs. So many problems are there. The details I have already given it. Still, if you have anything, I have given my mail ID. You can mail me. Next question.
The last question is, harmonic noise in DSP is a value in fuzzy logic. So isn't it data loss in this case?
I'm not speaking much on the fuzzy logic and other logics. For me, harmonics, if it is there, I have to assess it properly and I have to see that I completely remove it. That is my point of discussion. Signal processing. When it comes to fuzzy, fuzzy has its own pros and cons. So once again, if I'm coming to fuzzy means once again I'm going to something called as analog. See, fuzzy has the values which are there in between 0 and 1. There are membership functions between 0 and 1. So 0, 0.1, 0.11, 0.15. They are all infinite from 0 to 1. I can have membership functions. So the things will be different. Yes, you have to work on harmonics, how you can emulate or how you can work on it, that you need to understand. Next.
We have one more question. What are the real challenges, technology problems in smart grid as on today? Can you explain?
Actually, smart grid in the sense, as of now, we are not having full-fledged smart meter deployment even in Bangalore city also. First thing. Second thing is I speak of EV integration to the grid. I speak of grid connected aggregators, like aggregators will be there through which the EVs can be connected. Even that is not there. So many things I need to bring in. I need to even deploy PMUs, phasor measurement units. I need to bring in the technology, ICT into it. So it will take time. So communication challenges, data range challenges, then computation challenges, then the challenges associated with the TNT, then the challenges associated with rapid penetration of DJs, and the challenges associated with the optimization of optimizing the assets. All those things are there. Next question.
How to overcome cyber attacks on smart grid and how to eliminate complete cyber attacks.
For your information, we cannot completely avoid cyber attacks. If there are cyber attacks, even we'll be on the toes to address that. So we need to go for defense modeling. We have to be on the toes. It's saying like for a thief saying that don't rob, for a robber saying that you don't rob. No, it's not possible. You be prepared. That is what. So one like that is the second part of the second question. Second part of your question is answered. The first question, yes, you have to go for defense modeling. And repeatedly in my presentation, all the time I tell cyber security for systems is different and power systems is different. For your computer systems, your mobiles, that is different. For power system, it is different. Because to run a power system, I have a control software which cannot be updated like the way I put antivirus and I run my system. I clean my system. I go for updation of antivirus. That cannot be done there in power system. I should have a separate the alternative control software which should exist. Then I can go for updating the antivirus software for the other thing. So the cyber attacks will be there. You have to defend. So defense modeling of a cyber attacks is a must. And I will tell you, the power system in the days to come is more vulnerable to the cyber attacks. That is what you need to understand. Energy market will boom in the days to come. Next question.
That is all, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I thank Dr. Santosh Kumar Hampanawar for delivering this informative and enlightening session. Thank you, sir. I also thank all the attendees for participating enthusiastically in such huge numbers. Kindly note that course completion certificate will be issued only if you attend on all 5 days and on answering the quiz and feedback forms on all days. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Meghna, for giving an opportunity. Thank you all for patiently listening. And if you have any queries, you can mail me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.